Welcome to Are You Down with LPT? I'm Kyle Clarkson here with Jay Avant. Jay, how you doing?
Good. How about yourself, Kyle?
You're such a natural at this.
Oh, I'm born.
Yeah.
Born for it.
He just got done with a photo shoot with the Des Moines Register, so, Richard was claiming earlier to be the golden child, but, I don't know. A lot of people get their photos with the Des Moines Register.
I think I am the golden child, or your closer, as you call me.
Yeah, closer.
The closer.
Well, thanks for jumping in. I want to talk about, for sale by owners and expireds here in a minute, but I thought we'd start just kind of like your journey. So as you think back, like what was kind of the driving force for you to jump into real estate or desire to do it?
Well, thanks, Kyle. That's a really great question. So to go back in time to kind of think what started or sparked the idea of me getting into real estate, it starts back from when I was a very young boy. There's a few occasions or instances that happened that kind of sparked an interest. And the first one being is I've never lived in a house. So it's always been a small 2-bedroom apartment with 6, 7 people or whatever, aunt, uncle that got kicked out staying on the couch. So it was kind of that situation growing up. And then I think the biggest one is when my house got raided when I was 12. Just seeing the uncomfortable situation that I was in just kind of made me seem like, hey, how can they do things like this if you own your house? And that kind of made me understand that house wasn't ours. So, and then another one is my mom's biggest dream is always to buy a house. So that's kind of my driving force. My driving force is to get her a house. And then the lack of understanding of what that meant when we were younger kind of made me interested in to move forward in how I met you, which you were probably one of the biggest driving factors is how did I meet you? I'll let you tell that part.
Yeah, I remember getting an email, and I didn't know why I responded to the email, but I saw you on there.
He seen a handsome picture, and he was like, "Oh, I can't."
This guy wanted to learn more and wanted to get together about getting into real estate, and I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it."
Yeah,
took you to your favorite restaurant.
Yeah, and I don't like Chipotle, so I emailed the top 10 agents in Iowa, and he was number 7 at the time. I was a little disappointed. I wanted number 1, but they didn't respond, so I settled for 7. We met at Chipotle when I was like 17, and you've been a very big part of my life, and you taught me how to be an adult man. I didn't really know what I was doing, and you pay for all my schooling, so I still owe you $1,200 and 62.
The juice is running on that too, so it's probably $1,500-$1,600 now. But.
Yeah, interest is up.
I'm just kidding. So obviously, not many people at 17 or even earlier than that kind of know what they want to do in life, and not that you have to even know now what you're doing in life, but certainly you were driven and desired real estate and wanted to jump in, wanted to learn, and continue to want to do that. I love seeing that in you, and it's been a lot of growth.
Yeah, I got facial hair now. So.
Yeah, I know. You finally went through puberty once.
Here you go. Yeah. Well, that all comes from you. You've taught me everything I know so far, so I'm like a little you, but a little taller.
All right, let's keep going. So you were licensed when you were 18.
Yes.
And which is not, it's never easy to get licensed when you're young, and you're still young.
Yeah.
But especially at 18, because there's, I think there's a natural, as people are making one of their biggest choices and investments and purchases that they do is real estate. And so it's tough looking across the table and there's little 18-year-old Jay. Now you're all mature, look at you now. But obviously that's a challenge. But as you look back, what are maybe some other challenges that he experienced early in real estate?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the biggest challenges was I barely knew how to be an adult, let alone a real estate agent. Just not even having the understanding of life to go in front of someone and say, hey, this is their $500,000 investment. You should choose a child who doesn't even know how to be a man to sell your house. That was probably one of the biggest things. And I would really say I wasn't consistent enough or disciplined enough to be a successful agent. Just doing it willy-nilly here nor there, just trying this, trying that. But not putting the time and dedication it was needed to be successful, I think was probably one of the biggest things, because I just didn't understand how much work it took. And I didn't know how to be a salesman. Like on our license, it says we were a salesperson. Then I think that was the biggest lack of understanding was I didn't know how to be a salesperson, even though we're all in sales.
Yeah, there's I think a couple things to unpack. First of all, willy-nilly. Yeah. I mean, that's not an 18-year-old phrase or 21-year-old phrase.
All my clients are like 60. So.
Willy-nilly. But you talk about, and I was just talking with Pete and Richard a little bit ago, but, Pete had mentioned, like, getting in and not viewing yourself as a salesperson, but we are in sales, and it's a skill we got to learn. Yeah. And, obviously I'm involved a lot with Tom Ferry, and you've got the what you say matters, and I'm getting ahead of myself here as we talk about objections, but you have really jumped in with our coach, Javier, and they've got a handling objections calls a couple times a week.
3 times a week.
And you're on that often, right?
All the time.
And so, learning that. So maybe speak to that a second, like developing that sales skill.
I think the thing that most agents, when they're starting out, is the thing that we're missing is becoming a salesperson, right? You and I are all in direct sales. Sales is just persuading someone to do something that they want to do, and you're persuading them to do what you want to do. So, like, everyone's in direct sale. If you were a child, convincing your parents to let you go to Sally's house down the street, that's sales. Like, you're convincing them to do something that you want them to do.
You've been doing this since you're 5, huh?
Yeah, so, like, everyone's in indirect sales, and to your point, I think just when you're young, you have nothing but time. You just lack experience. And being surrounded with people that's been doing it for 10, 20 years, you're just like a sponge on the wall. And I think when everyone first starts out, you should be in these rooms of people that know more than you, can teach you more than anything. So going with Kyle every day, just like, hey, what can I do? Or, talking to Javier, asking him a million questions. Like, the reason I got to talk to, what's his name that sold the Playboy Mansion?
Gary Gold.
Gary Gold. So, like, I had the opportunity to speak with him just by being a sponge on the wall with Javier. So, being in when you're first starting out, being in the right place at the right time, you get a better understanding on what's going on. So, I would always say, if someone is new starting out, just be a sponge on the wall, learn as much as possible, and that will give you the experience since you don't have time.
And you don't. Hopefully, that never ends. Like, there's always someone that's ahead of where you are, and you never want to stop learning. You never want to stop being that sponge. I think when you think you've got it all together is probably when you need that the most. So yes, especially as a new agent, Richard and Pete were just talking about it. Like, be around, be present, be around people. And just learn from others that have done it. Jumping in on those handling objection calls, asking Javier questions. I mean, you were texting me yesterday, just questions. Never stop learning there.
Yeah, so. It's just like, this is like my 3rd year. But to me, like, the first 2 years when I was 18, 19, I wouldn't really say, to me, those really didn't count because I barely knew what I was doing. So for me, this is like my first real year of like, okay, we know what we're doing. We have an understanding. Let's go and do it. And then you should always be asking questions because if Kyle sold $1 million worth of real estate, I feel like I seen someone talk about this. Alex Hormezi said the biggest debt we all pay is ignorance, right? So the thing that separates us from being, this $1 million agent, me being a $1 million agent, is the information, right? I have all the skills it takes. I just don't know what it needs to know the information I need to become a $1 million agent. That's what we're missing. It's just information or the knowledge. The only way you get knowledge is by reading and asking the right questions. So the thing that stopped me from becoming a $1 million agent is information. That's why you have to ask so many questions.
Yep. Well, you'll get there.
Yeah.
You're on your way. So take us back. You think over the last 3 years you've been selling now. What are some of the things that have helped you get to where you are? Okay. And I was just talking with these guys, and there's a process. Like, year 1, you're learning. Year 2, you start to see some growth, and really kind of year 3, and you're experiencing this right now. Year 3 is when your business kind of elevates and grows.
So like the first 2 years, it's like a caterpillar, right? You're in your cocoon, and like your 3rd year is when you finally get to spread your wings and just
you're gonna fly, buddy.
Get to fly. So I would say, what was the question again?
Just things you've learned over the first couple of years that have helped you, grow in your business in real estate.
I think the biggest thing you have to learn is, you told me this when I first got into business, is the money's not going to come. Once you learn that I think the biggest thing you should learn is delayed gratification. You're going to do a lot of years worth of work and not see results ever. And if you can get past that, I think that is the biggest thing anyone started out should know is like you have to understand that delayed gratification is a thing you must be concise with. Like you have to be okay with that. And learning how to talk to people, right? Learning how to, like, God gave you 2 ears and one mouth, listen more than you speak. I think that was the biggest thing when I first started out. I was like, okay, asking the right questions. You know, if there's I've seen someone say this, if there's a question, there's a problem. If there's a problem, there's a need. If there's a need, there's a solution that you can provide for your client. So I would say understanding how to ask the right questions, but listening more than anything is the biggest lesson I learned.
Listen. Any areas that you think, you know, maybe from failing or over the last couple of years where like didn't work out how you thought it'd work out? And
Zillow. Sucked at it. Oh my! I'm just now understanding how to use Zillow. I think so. When we started, Kyle's like this advocate for Zillow. He died on the hill that Zillow is the best way. You know, without Zillow,
I haven't said that. I said for me.
I'm saying that. So Zillow. When I first started out, I had no idea how to do it. You're getting these leads. I think one of the best gifts in disguise was he turned me off on Zillow, right? And now, like, my back's against the wall, like, Jay, figure it out. So not understanding Zillow opened the door for me to be able to talk to expireds and for sale by owners, and that'll probably go into the next segment. But not understanding how to work with buyers made me have the opportunity to learn how to be a salesperson. So I think that was one of the biggest lessons I learned.
And you will be fine on Zillow. Obviously, you put one under contract the other day. But it is, and it's a process that you have to learn because there's different skill sets. You know, again, go back to agent archetypes. We got a converter, we got a prospector, networker, marketer, all those things. But it is a skill set that can be learned. So, and in that time, you really did dive into for sale by owners and expired listings. And I do want to chat about that because I think, especially as a newer agent, if you're hungry, you're looking for business, that is something in a way in which you can generate some conversations. So, you know, I don't know where to start on that, but I do want to,
let's start from the beginning. So there's a guy named Kyle Clarkson, right? He's been in business for 20 years. He sold from $1 houses to $999,000 houses, but then he's never got over the threshold of selling $1 million house. He makes
that's true.
A young handsome man like myself, and I get him over that hump. So like the first home I ever sold was $1 million house, which he tells the story all the time. But it took 6 months of like calling to understand what that was. We got a really big check. That money's gone. That money was gone before it was even there. But to understand like for sale by owners, it's really trial and error. There's really no right and wrong way to do it. But if someone was asking me like, hey, I'm trying to start out.
Yes, maybe not wrong and right. But I think there are wrong ways to do it.
Oh, yeah.
I think there may be different right ways to do it.
Yeah, we'll have an example. Yep. Okay, you're for sale by owner. I'm calling. This is a completely wrong way to do it.
Okay.
Ring, ring, ring.
Hello.
Come list your house with me. I don't know what I'm doing, but can you just do it?
No.
Completely wrong. Completely wrong way to do it is like the worst way to, I would say, to call for sale by owners is thinking about what you want, right? Saying all the things you can do. We sell houses faster, this better, this better. That's not the wrong way to do it.
2 ears, right?
Yeah. So like,
2 ears,
do not lead with what you can do. Understand what they need. I would say that's the best way to call for sale by owner is asking the right questions, and then we'll go into that a little bit here soon. So. I'd say that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, so, Jay didn't share the whole story, but I had never sold $1 million houses a couple of years ago now.
Now he's getting...
Now, sell them every day. He was calling for sale by owners and connected with this guy who had, I think they were 1.5 or something on Zillow. Yep. I think we took the listing at 1.2 or 1.1 and sold a month later. And we had a lot of interest in it and sold it for $1 million. And so my first $1 million sale was thanks to Jay. Yeah. And his first 2 sales were $1 million. I think that the one on Justice and Aiken, he was probably 670.
Yeah, 670.
And so he was high rolling before with his first couple sales.
Yeah.
For sale by owners. And so if someone wants to, kind of generate leads through for sale by owners, maybe take us through just a daily one. Let's start here. One, where's good ways for them to find for sale by owners and expired listings?
So the best way to find, to your first point, for sale by owners would be just go on Zillow, right? You can. There's a bunch of filters that you can integrate for sale by owners in this area, newest to oldest, this price. That's where I always go because it's the easiest way to do it. Now, expired leads, I would say there's kind of two ways to do it. You can buy. We have RedX, which is I don't pay for it. He pays for it. So how much is it?
I don't know.
Well,
I should probably find that out.
Somebody pays for it.
I pay for it.
Yeah,
I just don't know.
RedX. There's Mojo, Vulcan 7. There's a few ways to find expired leads. You don't have to go with the most expensive one, which is Vulcan 7. They use all the same servers. So you can get RedX where they'll have a list of expired leads, or you can go on the MLS. There's a tab where it says expired leads that came off the market today. You could go cross-search those with Forewarn, look up the name. Only problem is they might be on a do not call list. It doesn't really tell you, so be careful with that. Do not call and do not call list. But, yeah, I would never do that. So there's a few ways to find the expireds. And then what was your second point?
That was the first one. Like, okay, I think that's the first step is where do I find them? Okay. And so, whether it's Zillow with for sale by owner, MLS through expires, like there's inexpensive ways to do it. There's more efficient ways, like you had mentioned with Vulcan 7 or RedX or whatever system that's just going to give it to you, going to give the phone number, going to save you time. But as a new agent, a lot of times, your money's an issue, right? And so you want to find, cheaper ways to do it. So that's one. That's where we find them. But now take me through a daily routine. If I'm going to call for sale by owners and or expired listings, what's a day look like doing that?
So a daily routine is, I would always set aside maybe 1 to 2 hours of just straight calling. Because you can call 100 people, and I can almost guarantee you 75% is not going to answer. Yep. You'll talk to 30%, and about 22% is going to tell you no, so you have about 8% that might respond.
So of those, stop you there for a quick second.
Yeah.
75% answer or don't answer. Yeah. Do you leave a message?
No, I never. Yeah. I never leave a message because I think Alan Weaver, a good friend of mine, a good coach, he always talks about, like he talked about one time, is if I call you with a number, if I'm calling the person listening to this, and you don't know the number, I'm not going to leave a message. But if I call you again, you're like, the same number's calling me. Yeah. Okay, let me answer, right? Yeah. And then there's me on the phone, someone you don't want to talk to in the first place. Yeah. So leaving a message is like, oh, that's another.
They're not calling back. I'm deleting it, right?
There's 50 agents calling each person, so there's like, oh, another agent calling me. So I never leave a message until like the second or third call.
Yep. Okay, gotcha. So daily routine, we're calling these numbers. Walk me through that again.
So
calling that. 75% don't answer, 8% of those that do answer.
Yeah, there's it's a numbers game with calling for sale by owners and expireds. It's all about, you're going to put in a lot of time and not see a lot of results, but if I told you how to make 27 calls for 3 months to get $1 million listener, 30,000, 20, you do it, right? So it's just, you wake up in the morning, you do whatever you need to do in your morning routine. You come to the office, and I would always say, Heath always told me this, like, you just keep calling, or I always try to have 5 conversations, like real-time conversations, either it's a yes or a no, because the conversion rate I always try to shoot for is if I talk to 5 people, I should try to get 1 good conversation. If I can get 3 good conversations, I get an appointment at those 3. So my goal is always to leave with having 5 real conversations with people.
So you think 5 conversations leads to an appointment, or 5 conversations leads to 1 good appointment, but I need 3 good appointments to
Yeah, so I always say 5 conversations, because 5 conversations lead to 1 good conversation or needle-moving conversation.
Okay, not necessarily an appointment.
Yep. So if you're coming in, let's say Monday through Friday, and you have 25 conversations, in 1 out of those 5, you'll have 5 good conversations. You should be able to convert 1 to even an appointment or moving the needle forward out of those 5. So if you come in every day, you have 5 conversations. That's 25 a week. And then what's 25 times 4? Quick math.
100.
If you talk to 100 people a month, you should be able to at least convert 3% of that, which leads to appointment. Back to what you said, it's a numbers game.
Yep.
So you should be. I always try to strive for having 5 real-time conversations with people.
Yep.
So that's kind of what the daily looks like.
Yeah, good. So we don't have to do a whole script here, but if I'm a normal conversation with a for sale by owner, just take me through some of the key points.
So I brought some tools here. You guys can't see them, but I have them in front of me. So this book. What does it say? I'll let you read it.
Spin Selling.
Spin Selling changed my whole routine when it comes to calling for a sell-by owner because it teaches you how to ask the right questions. So I got some notes here, and this will go back into the conversations I'm having with the calls. So situation questions is like it's each, when it says SPIN, they all stand for something. It's an acronym.
Okay.
So SPIN stands for situation questions, questions that ask about facts or explore the client's present situation, some disfactuation that they're having right now. And then the P stands for problem-solving questions, asking questions about the difficulties that the client may be having, because the goal in order to actually lead to appointment is understanding if there's a problem. If the client's happy and having a problem, you're wasting your time with the conversation. You have to discover the problem. This is what that book teaches. So P is problem-solving questions, kind of learn about what problems they may be having. And then, where's it at? I, implication questions. Questions that affect the consequences of the buyer. For example, I'll ask one right now. So let's say you're for sale by owner. You've been listing your house for 6 months, right? And you haven't sold it, but you want to move to Florida, right? So selling your house is stopping that. So let's start asking questions about the pain of not getting the results you want to. So it's just like, you told me that you wanted to move to Florida, but you haven't sold your house. How is that affecting your dream? Like how is that?
It's cold here, man. I gotta get out of here.
So now in the client's mind, they're talking about problems they didn't know they had or they forgot they had. So now on the round, it's like, dang, I really need to sell my house, and you're bringing problems out of them. So like asking implication questions, like, okay, there's some problems that I'm having, and then the N, I don't like the way they said this.
Yeah.
It's need to pay off questions where it changes. The implication questions focus on the problem. The N focus on the solution. So it's just like, you said you want to move to Florida, so how beneficial would it be if like you sold your house in the next 30 days? Like, what would that do for you?
I'd get to where I want to go, warmer weather, man.
See, now it just changes the focus, but it's the same question. So it's just using these questions and creating a structure on getting them to understand the problem and understand that you have a solution. So when I start my calls, right, my openings needs work. Like that's the one part I cannot get down. What I'm still working on is like the right opening. And when we're in the conversation, I'm just like, okay, let's just role play, blah, blah, blah. I called you, blah, blah, blah. You know, what's it been like selling your house? Like, how's traffic been?
Hardly any.
Really? Yeah. How's that doing for what you're trying to do, moving?
Yeah, I mean, just nobody's calling. Every now and then an agent like you will give me a call, but that's about it.
Okay, well, thanks for telling me that. And I'm just curious, what makes you want to move in the first place? Like, it's a beautiful home. Like, what inspired you to sell?
Yeah, I don't like winters. My kids have moved out of the house, so I'm not really tied to Iowa anymore. So just kind of want to get down south, warmer weathers.
Okay,
play more golf.
Here's where we pause. So this is the S. I'm just understanding his situation. Like, why do you want to sell? Like, what's his motivation? Where is he going out with this? You know, what's going on with his area? And then now you lean to the problems. Like, so it's been on the market 6 months. Like, how is that affecting you if you don't like being in Iowa?
Man, just suffering through the cold.
Suffering through the cold. And then you can mix it up. You don't have to go in order. Like implication questions like, you said you're suffering, like what do you want to do about that? Are you trying to move, or like what's the ideal goal? You know, where are you heading with this? Like,
wife wants to sit on the beach. I want to play some golf, you know.
Like, how long would you be willing, if you said you're suffering, how long would you be willing to suffer until you maybe had a different conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I can't do another winter. I mean, I know that. So, you know, whatever I got to do to move next winter.
So a few things just happened. We understood his problem, and we learned about his timeline, and we learned his motivation. Those three things should tell you what he needs, right? And once you figure out what he needs, you can figure out the problem. And once you figure out the problem, you know there's a solution. And this is where you can lead into some of the need payoff questions where you're understanding different solutions. Now I'm providing you with a solution. It's like, so you said you don't like the winter. So the thing that you want more than anything is to move. And let's say you could move in the next 30, 45 days. Would that be something you like to do?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So now I know that I have a solution for him. And then you just lean into what you can do for them because you figure out there's a need. And once you figure out there's a need, there's a solution that you could have. So it could be like, hey, so honestly, I'll talk a little about myself and what we've done. So we have a record of selling homes within the 45-day time frame. And, you know, in your price point, I think that's something that could actually be. Never guarantee that you could sell their house before you even meet them.
Yeah.
Right? Don't make promises you can't keep.
Yeah.
But like, you know, we sold I'm on Kyle Clarkson's team, and we sold 400 homes. That's about 113 million in sales volume, and our average days on market is 22 days, and that fits what you're trying to do. You're trying to move in 45 days. So can we ever just have a conversation of what we can do for you? Like, I think there's something there that we can actually help you do because we've done it before. Yeah. Right? So most people want to hear credibility. Like, you're new. Yep. I was new. I had no credibility, but I knew him, and he had all the credibility, so I just took his name. Right? So when I called up for sale by owner when I first started, I didn't sell any houses. So if someone's new, they're not selling any houses, you know nothing. Use your company, LPT Realty, if you're starting out. Use your company stats. Tracy has. Yeah, she gives them. Oh, she's gonna kill me. Miss Tracy has like a monthly, weekly, Monday where she talks about everything. And use the stats of the companies as your leverage that you can do it, right? And then once people see that you have the credibility behind you, that builds self-belief that you can do the job. So I would say that's like how my conversation is going, is understanding what problems they may be having. Because if there's no problem, there's no solution, and you're wasting your time.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Appreciate it.
Really good. Really good.
Yeah.
Really good.
And so, obviously this is something you're doing weekly, daily, whatever. Yeah. Rejection. So a lot of the people that start calling for sale by owners expireds, or maybe the reason they don't is, the fear of the phone, fear of rejection. Yeah. Like, have you ever been rejected? I know the answer.
With women in life, it all comes. But I always ask, if you always seek negativity, that's all you'll receive. So when you go into a call, the odds of getting rejected are high, but there's the odds of you getting a yes as well. There was, I think, Les Brown, the motivational speaker, I said, you're always one away. You're one no away from a yes. You're two no's away from it. You're always one away. You're one appointment away from a listing. So when you get rejected, it's going to happen. But always look for the good and the bad. Because usually when people are rejecting you, they're not rejecting you as a person. They're just rejecting your service, which has nothing to do with connection of you. They're not coming at your character as a person. So if you're scared of being rejected or getting on the phone, if you're starting out, I always say, when you're starting out, what do you have to lose? Like, you're at rock bottom. You have nothing going for yourself. There's only one way up. So, like, you only have room to gain if someone tells you no. When you're starting out, there's nothing you lose from this conversation because you're right back to where you started. Only way, like, Kyle's in a different situation. He's all the way up here. If he gets rejected, that might, he hasn't got rejected in years. So, like, it might knock him down a peg. But for you, it's, what do you have to lose? Like, you're already at rock bottom. There's only one way up, and that's the way you got to go. So when you're scared of being rejected, just think of it like, I'm one away. Somebody told me no, that means somebody else can tell me yes.
And I college professor, I heard him say one time, failure is the back door to success.
Yeah,
and
100%.
That rejection, that failure, like, you learn from it. Yeah. And maybe I said this wrong, or I can learn this. And sometimes you can say things perfectly, and they're still going to reject what you're offering. But I think there's a lot to learn, and you've learned over time, and you've been rejected many times. I've heard it. Yeah. I remember being in the other room, and this guy's like swearing at you, yelling at you, and hang up the phone. And you're like, all right, I'll call him next week.
Yeah, because, like, if you're yelling at me, that means you're telling me, like, you're connected, you're passionate, which means I can work with people like that. Yeah. But someone that doesn't care, I can't work with somebody like that. But if you have the time to cuss me out, and Kyle and I have this interior joke, is die by restraining order. You're going to do one of the three or you're going to keep hearing from me. So, and I always say, this is a quote that I stole from him. I don't know if he remembers saying this, but he told me this a long time ago. Because when I was first start calling for sale owners, this is kind of what motivated me to keep moving forward. He says, you can never lose, you can only learn. There's only wins and learns, nothing in between. So when someone tells you no, there's just an opportunity to learn more, right? So just never think of it as, oh, I got rejected, I'm a terrible agent. No, you're not a terrible agent. You're just learning the curves on what it needs to be successful. And these are learning curves you have to go through. So that's where we always go back to the point of people not learning how to be a salesperson. Your dad was selling for 50 years. Him and Barney are prime examples of when they started, this was a requirement. You're going to get on. You're going to knock on the door. You're going to knock on the door. You're going to cold call because it teaches you the skills of how to be a successful agent. I think that's what most agents forget to do because they're scared of it. Mm-hmm. But learning the fundamental skills of being a salesperson is so important if you want to last as a very successful agent. That's why Barney and your dad lasted so long because they had the fundamental skills. So if you're starting out as an agent, my opinion, which this is just what worked for me, I get jumping on social media, posting every video, telling everybody you're doing like that. But that's good. But when a client comes through, you didn't learn the fundamental skills it needed to be an agent. So do both. Learn how to be a salesperson. Read books. Kyle gave me a book list when I was like 18 that I read. I've read every book on that list. Learn how to be an agent or a salesperson. That's the most important part. So that's what I say about that.
Yeah. Well, no, I appreciate it. Philosopher Jay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I dive in. I've never heard of this book. Spin Selling.
Spin
so
Selling.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Don't have a lot more time, but just want to look to the future. You know, you've been in real estate 3 years now. You've off to a great start in 2025. I think you're obviously going to kill what you did in 2024.
Yeah.
I think you got 400 or 500 contract already. Yeah. So off to an amazing start. Congrats to that. So as you look to the future, you know, younger past Jay has learned some vital lessons. But where do you see yourself? You go out 2, 5, 10 years. Number one. I know you see yourself there.
Yeah.
And no doubt.
Yeah. So my goal is Kyle has a team of 17 people. If we're talking about 2 and 5 years, I'll be with you as long as I'm living in Iowa. Until then, I don't know. But I plan on being your number one. Yeah. So I plan on being my goal in the next 2 to 5 years, I'm going to be number one. Yeah. It's always been my goal since I got in. Yeah. So I would definitely say, and the second goal would be building a brand. So like when you see my name or you see my face, you know me for real estate. Like building a brand behind my name that speaks in rooms that I'll never walk in. Yep. So building a brand and being number one is probably 2 things I see.
And you've done a great job of that even now. I mean, you just came from a photo shoot with the Des Moines Register. So, so you've done a good job placing that. And I know, you know, long term, you talk about being someplace even other than Iowa, and you know,
well, wherever you open up a brokerage, we're waiting on you to move.
Palm Springs, man. That's our next step.
Okay, let's do it. And you're sending me there. And now I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So since you're a successful agent, you've been doing this for as long as me and Alyssa has been alive, right? What are some of the tools and things that you've learned that could be beneficial to you newer agents? What would you say?
I'd probably repeat some of what you already said. One, surround yourself with people that have been where you want to go. Yeah. And so for me, it's been, you know, get into coaching. Yeah. You know, Javier has been my coach for 9 years, but you put people in your life that are like, okay, do I want to become a top agent? Okay. Then who are the top agents? What are they doing? What can I learn from? And everybody does it a little differently. Yeah. And so you might get a little nugget here and there that you would apply. And then it's like, okay, now I'm a top agent. What does it look like to build a team? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to hire an admin. And when I did it, you know, 10 years ago, I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. I'm like, okay, well, we'll hire somebody. Then a buyer's agent, and started building that out. Okay, well, what does that look like for that team to grow? And then what's it look like to start a brokerage? And so, you know, obviously, you and I are probably both driven people, and we like looking out to the future and, you know, seeing some growth there.
To that point, when you were starting out, or when nothing was going for you, you lost both your retinas in your eyes.
I didn't lose them. I tore them.
Well, yeah, tomato. What mindset did you have when everything wasn't working for you? There was nothing going for you. Yeah. What mindset, or how were you thinking, like, in those situations where nothing's going for you, your back's against the wall? Like, what were you thinking? What was your thought process?
Well, you go back to your Zillow stuff where, you know, you were removed from, you know, taking leads on Zillow. Yeah. You know, for me, I was in financial ruin, and I had a family and wife and 3 kids. Wife was staying home with the kids, and I remember when I got the news of my second retina, I was laying on the ground in tears because I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? I have no money, my credit's maxed out, and so when you're kind of forced to figure some things out when there's no other place to turn, and so those were moments that I don't want to relive, but going through them. And coming out the other side and the lessons learned from them, I think kind of make you who you are today. Certainly has for me, and I think for you as well. You talk about your dream growing up has evolved out of, like, we never had a house. Yeah. We had a 2-bedroom apartment. There's 6 or 7 of us, and, you know, those are things that drive us.
So, okay, I know we're pushing time, but I always like to ask you questions. What's the best piece of advice that someone's ever given you?
Ooh, I go, you know, the part about failure, you know, with I'm sure there's maybe some other, I can't think off the top of my head, but I mentioned this earlier, failure, the back door to success. And when I have failed is when I have learned the best lessons, and failed in relationships or failed in business or whatever, because I think you truly learn, hey, this didn't work. What can I do? How can I learn from it? How can I grow from it? And, you know, I don't want to
Okay.
I don't like failing, but
And then we'll end it on these two sentences.
yeah, okay.
And this is one for you. If you could give one sentence for the audience to remember after this whole podcast, what would you want to leave them with?
Ooh.
See, I'm really good at this. Like,
What's one thing? Turning it on me. I think if we look at your story, because that's where we've been focused today, that it's a grind, and you got to keep grinding. And what you do today might not pay off tomorrow, but it may pay off in the future. And going off Zillow forced you to do something. Yeah. And so that's what I would say, like, do the work, see the results. I use the story of George Brett often, where George Brett said he was a great baseball player.
No idea. Listen, you know who he is?
This is my childhood. George Brett was my favorite player growing up. But
TV was black and white back then.
We didn't have TVs. I'm just kidding. But what he would say is like, hey, he never swung for the fences. But sometimes he'd hit a home run. But he would do the same thing. Yeah. He'd practice the same way. He'd swing the same way. And sometimes you get singles, doubles, triples. Sometimes, you hit a home run. Most of the time you get out. And so you think about for sale by owners expires, like George Brett's a career 300, little over 300 hitter. That means 3 out of 10, but he's a Hall of Famer. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, okay, all right. So anyway, any piece of advice that you want to leave us with?
Yeah, for sure. So I always, like I said before, the biggest debt we pay is ignorance. The things we don't know is stopping us from becoming the person we want to become. Yep. So my advice to you is learn the foundational skills it takes to be a successful agent. That comes from reading, gaining knowledge. My second point is delayed gratification is essential when it comes to real estate. So those few pieces, what I would say is leave with you, and nothing changes. Always apply for more work. Always do you can. Always ask the right questions. There's somebody that's doing better than you. They can teach you something you don't know.
Yep. Well, Jay, the philosopher.
There we go.
We appreciate it. Thank you. And we'll do this more often, but especially, as we look a year or two from now as the number one agent, then we'll let you lead it.
We'll be in Palm Springs, Pasadena.
Yeah, that's right.
I said Pasadena.
Palm Springs.
Palm Springs.
Yeah, it's all the same. All right, Jay, thanks for joining us.
No
appreciate
problem.
it.